All right, today we're going to do something that might sound a little complicated, but I promise it's not. We're going to take a corporate financial report and break it down into a story that actually makes sense. And to do that, we're using a real-world case study, the Indian education company Aptech Limited. Let's get right into it.
You know that feeling, right? You open a company's quarterly report and it's just a wall of numbers. It can feel totally overwhelming, almost like trying to read a different language. But here's the secret. Behind all that data is a real story about a company's health. And our job today, we're going to be the translators. We'll decode that story piece by piece.
So, just so we're all on the same page, our focus is on Aptech, a major player in the Indian education space. We're zooming in on the specific period between 2018 and 2020. And a quick heads up on the figures you're about to see. They're all in Indian rupees and presented in lakhs. And don't worry, that's simple. 1 lakh is just 100,000. So whenever you see a number, just picture it with 5 zeros tacked on the end to get the full amount.
Okay, so here's our game plan for this financial checkup. We're going to start with the most important thing, profitability. Then we'll look at where their money came from and, of course, where it went. And finally, we'll put all the pieces together for a final diagnosis of the company's health.
All right, let's cut right to the chase, the bottom line. This is the one question every investor, every employee, and even every customer really wants to know. Did the company actually make any money? Because, let's be real, no business can survive for long without it.
And this is where our story gets really interesting. Take a look. In the middle of 2019, things are looking pretty good for Aptech. They posted a solid profit of 481 lakhs. But just a few months later, in early 2020, the entire picture just flips. They swing from that nice profit to a significant loss of 731 lakhs. That dramatic turnaround is the central mystery we need to solve.
And just to really appreciate the scale of that loss, let's look at the full number. That's a loss of over 73 million Indian rupees in just 3 months. This wasn't a small dip. This was a major reversal.
So the big question is, what happened? How does a company go from being healthy and profitable to losing a massive amount of money so quickly? Well, to figure that out, we need to break things down into 2 fundamental parts. The money coming in, which is its revenue, and the money going out, which are its expenses.
Let's start with the first piece of that puzzle, the revenue engine. To really understand what's going on, we have to know where the company's money is actually coming from in the first place. Back in that profitable quarter in 2019, Aptech had 2 main streams of income. As you can see pretty clearly from this chart, the bigger one was retail revenue. It brought in over 2,700 lakhs. Institutional revenue made up the rest. So this tells us that the retail side of their business was the main thing driving their income during this good period.
And this timeline, wow, it really illustrates the volatility. Look at the journey of their total revenue. It was hovering around 2,900 lakhs in late 2018, then it peaked pretty impressively in mid-2019. But by early 2020, it had fallen off sharply, dropping all the way down to just under 2,600 lakhs. This massive drop in income is our first major clue in solving the mystery of that big loss.
Okay, now for the other side of the equation. A big drop in revenue is a problem, for sure, but it turns into a full-blown crisis if your costs don't drop along with it. So, where was Aptech's money going? In the quarter they posted that huge loss, this is what their spending looked like. 2 categories totally dominate here. A massive 59% went to other expenses, which can be a catch-all for everything from marketing to rent. The next biggest piece, at 33%, was employee benefit expense, which is basically just salaries and benefits for their staff.
Now, this comparison table, this is where it all clicks into place. Look at that top line. Total revenue fell from over 4,700 lakhs all the way down to just 2,700. A massive drop. But now look at the second line, total expenses. They barely budged. They only went down from about 4,000 lakhs to 3,800. Their spending remained stubbornly high even as their income completely collapsed.
So here it is, the core of the whole story. Their revenue was slashed by nearly half, a 45% drop. But the company's cost base, what it was spending on staff, rent, and everything else, it only shrank by a tiny 6%. When your income plummets but your spending stays high, a loss is pretty much inevitable. So, after examining all the symptoms, looking at the revenue and the costs, what's our final diagnosis from this financial health checkup?
So here are the key takeaways from our checkup. First, Aptech's profitability was volatile, swinging dramatically from profit to loss. Second, its revenue relied really heavily on that retail segment. Third, the loss was caused by a severe revenue shock. And finally, the problem was made so much worse by what you could call sticky costs, expenses that were just difficult to reduce quickly.
So who's in the driver's seat for all of this? Well, the report itself tells us, identifying the managing director as the chief operating decision maker. Ultimately, this is the person who's responsible for navigating these kinds of financial challenges.
So, we'll end with a question for you. Now that you understand the dynamics of this business, the volatile revenue and the sticky costs, what would you look for in their next financial report to see if their health has improved? Would you focus on revenue growth, or would you be looking for signs that they've finally gotten their costs under control? It's questions just like these that turn a wall of numbers into a fascinating story.